How y'all doing? So, I wanted to do a little introductory video to explain who I am and what I'm doing here. Pardon me, I smoke. My name is Mr. Booth, and everybody calls me that. My name's Brian, but nobody calls me Brian. My own mother doesn't even call me Brian. Everybody calls me Mr. Booth, so that's what I go by. Mr. Booth. First name's Mr. Middle name's that little period in the middle. Last name is Booth. I am the president and one of the founders of the Southern Disciples Brotherhood. We are a Christian motorcycle brotherhood. I don't say motorcycle club because there's politics involved in that. We do have permission for some of you people. I've been doing these videos on Facebook, and you know, that's cool, but you gotta remember, Facebook is all your friends, you know. They all know you, they all like you, or most of them, otherwise why would they be on there? But this is YouTube. You guys don't know me. Some of you are gonna hack on me, whatever. Makes no never mind to me. But anyway, I wanted to be able to reach more people because I feel like I can reach people. People can relate to my story because, you know, of course, you can tell by looking at me that I was not always a Christian. In fact, I was an absolute enemy of the church. You know, I grew up in church, and I saw hypocritical things. I saw perversions. I was raped by a fellow that I went to church with. You know, I mean, we were kids. It wasn't like a grown man. I was like 10 years old. I think the other guy, he was younger than me by like a year or so. He was like 9. But I wondered, how could a 9-year-old know how to rape somebody? How could he even know what that is? So I started looking, paying more attention to what was going on around me. And I saw perversions in the church. Saw people sleeping with one another's wives. And I saw stuff that, you know, is not supposed to be going on in the church. And so it just really turned me away to where not only did I not want to be one of them, but I wanted to, I mean, I was headed the opposite direction. I grew up, I wasn't really the nicest guy. I got into witchcraft. I studied all the witchcraft stuff. I was an avid student of and Satanism. Oh man, I really used to like the music of a fella, Merciful Fate, and King Diamond, and all the satanic stuff. The more it was against the church, the better I liked it, you know. And I studied Aleister Crowley and Anton LaVey, and just, you know, whatever was considered wicked by the church, that's what I wanted to be a part of. I didn't believe them. I didn't believe that they believed the stuff they were telling me to believe. You know, if that makes any sense to you. And then, you know, other things too, besides just the church I grew up in. I saw Jimmy Swaggart, you know, get busted with that chick he was fooling with. And I saw Jim Baker get in trouble with Jessica Hahn, wasn't it? Way back then. I mean, I just didn't believe any of these people. And that's why I want to do this, is because, you know, they're not all fakes, just most of them. Most of them are fakes. But anyway, I grew up and I did everything wicked I could possibly think of to do, and I took a lot of drugs, spent most of my time drunk or high in some sort of way. Or you name a drug, I was on them. I was but you know, things changed though. I was bouncing at a club called the Claremont Lounge in Atlanta. And a lot of movie stars go there. And it was funny because my first job there was actually to guard the beer room. Here I was, an absolute drunk, and I was in charge of guarding the beer room, keeping people from stealing beer. Yeah. Anyway, that's where I was, and a buddy of mine from school came down. His name was JJ, and he came down to visit me down there, and he wanted to talk to me about God. I told him, I said, JJ, I don't believe in God, man. I just don't. I was like, I wish I could tell you I did, but I just don't. I didn't believe in God at all. I didn't believe he even existed. And JJ, he was relentless. He didn't give in. He had set his sights on it. I don't know. The Lord had led him to me. And he knew there was some sort of reason for it. And he didn't give in. And he just asked me, do you think he could be open to it at least? And I was like, all right, yeah, I'm willing. If there is a God, then I want to meet the guy. I'd like to meet him, hang out with him. And so, I was open to it, but for a while nothing happened. But then I started having these dreams, and the dreams were it was my stepdad who had been dead and gone for like 12 years, and I started having these dreams, and he was showing up. The one that was most significant, it was the first one, because I was in jail when he died, and so I wasn't at the funeral or nothing. And so in this dream, I was living in Atlanta at the time. I saw him. I thought I was in a train station. It seemed like it was probably a MARTA station because, I was taking MARTA a lot. It made sense. It's the only thing that made sense to me. I thought it was really nice for a MARTA station. But anyway, I noticed this wall. This wall was like a couple feet tall, and it was sheetrock and had a curve to it. And then in a couple of feet, it starts with these big square glass tiles. You could see through them. You could see through them, but not really. It was distorted, Anyway, square glass tiles all the way up, And I thought, well, that's interesting. But then I saw my stepdad, and I saw him walking through there, and he was looking at this wall, which made sense because he did sheetrock work, so something like that would interest him. But I hollered his name, and I said, "Hey, Henry." And he came walking up to me. He looked at me and he smiled, and he came walking up to me, and he went to shake my hand. But when I went to shake his hand, he was gone. And what's so significant about it is like I say, I was in jail when he died, and so I didn't get to see him. Well, a few days later, after I had this dream, my nephew was in the hospital for he was born with a hole in his heart, or I think two holes in his heart that they were going to have to repair. So I went down there to see him with my little brother, and when I walked into the hospital, I saw that wall that I had seen in my dream. Now, I'd never been here before, but I knew the wall when I saw it, and I said, "Hey man, that's that wall I was talking about." And that's when they told me that this was the place, this was the hospital in which my stepdad had died in. So I was like, oh wow, how could I know that wall, unless he really came to see me. And I had a few other dreams, going on. But and so I did. I was open to it, and over time, I was interested, but I couldn't progress any because I was such a drunk, and I was doing so much cocaine and LSD, whatever I could get my hands on. I just never had a sober mind at all. So that's about as far as it went. I had a few other dreams, and I had dreams with other relatives that had been, had passed on, and they were always trying to tell me stuff. And then whatever they were trying to tell me, it would come to pass. And it was happening a lot. But, years went on, and I didn't change very much. But I stayed interested. It's just the crowd I was running around with, and the people I was hanging out with, if you started talking about trying to go to church, they're going to make fun of you, and that's real hard. That's one of the hardest parts about being a Christian is when God first starts dealing with you, then you can't contain that. It's going to be obvious. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find a church where you can fit in, and feel like family, and feel like this is where you belong, because you have to change the people that you're hanging out with. If your crowd's not going to sober up, and they're not going to support you in your newfound salvation, then you're not going to be able to pull it off. So years went on, and I wasn't able to pull it off. And as the years later, just about 3 years ago, that's when things got really interesting. It was about 3 years ago, I had made up my mind that I wanted to straighten my life out. I knew that God existed, and I wanted to reach out, but it just wasn't possible in the situation I was in, and I ended up getting in trouble, and I stabbed somebody. I cut him. I got in a fight, and I cut his neck a couple times and stabbed him a bunch of times in the face and head, and got stabbed myself in the process. There's a little scar back here. I don't know. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time in jail, and that's when a lot of people go to jail and they pick up that Bible, and that's where it ends. Once they walk out them doors, they forget all about it. But no, I talked to God a lot in there, in earnest, not just. Mostly because I was in solitary confinement. I was in isolation for a good bit of that time, and I preferred it that way. I discovered that I'm too old to be doing the jail thing anymore like I used to, and so I enjoyed my solitary confinement, and I spent a lot of time talking and praying and meditating on what I was doing, and really genuinely seeking with all my heart, and things had started to happen, and I made up my mind that when I got out of there that I was going to stick with it. I really was, and I'd learned a lot in there, and I'd read a lot, and so when I got out, I had it in my head that I was going to stick with it, but I didn't really have anywhere to go. And I went back to the place where I was when I got into trouble, and there was a lot of meth going on, a lot of methamphetamine going on. I wasn't going to be able to get straight there. Couldn't get along with the people I was there with anymore. I ended up leaving and going and pitching a tent in the woods behind a buddy of mine's house. And they had started going to church. And so I didn't go to their church. I was still a drunk, remember, and they didn't allow any booze at their house. So what I would do is I would walk down the road, or I would get somebody to come and give me a ride, and I would hide beer and I would smuggle it behind their house up into the tent that I was staying in, and I would get drunk and just stay in my tent. They would go to church, but anyway, I took off down to Florida, for a stupid reason, for a stupid person that was just, it was just dumb, a bad idea. I got down there and realized that, hey, this is not what I need to be doing. I need to go back home and go to work. So that's what I did. I went home. I went to work. Well, the thing is, the only way I could make it back was to hop on a Greyhound bus. And so I hopped on a Greyhound bus without a dime in my pocket. I didn't even have any cigarettes. And, you know, I do enjoy cigarettes. But anyway, so by the time I get to Atlanta, you know, it's like midnight. And I got nowhere to go, nowhere to turn, nobody. It was the night before Easter Sunday. And so I was thinking, well, here I am stuck in Atlanta. I'm going to be on the streets of Atlanta the night of Easter, you know, and nobody's going to help me. But somebody did help me. Some people that I went to school with, they came from Dawsonville all the way to Atlanta and picked me up in the middle of the night and carried me. They took me and fed me at the varsity. So I really appreciated that. And they gave me a ride back to my tent, and as we were passing my tent, they said, hey, this is where we go to church right here. It's like, this is a biker church, man. They're all bikers that go here. And I'm like, really? Because I had heard about the biker church in Dahlonega. Now I'm going to sneeze. I heard about the biker church in Dahlonega, and I thought about going there, but I never went. But anyway, so they said, that's where we go to church right there. Man, it's cool. They don't care what you look like. They don't care what you wear. They, you know, they're not fakes and phonies. These are people that live just as hard as we have. You know, you come and check it out. So the next morning I walked up there and saw their Easter Sunday play, and they did the Passion of Christ. So I didn't really see any of my buddies. I was looking around for them. I didn't find them. But anyway, I liked it. I really enjoyed it, and they treated me really good there. And the reason I didn't see my friends is because they were in the play, so I didn't get a chance to talk to them that day. And plus, I had a pretty bad hangover by that morning anyway, so I just kind of hurried up. I needed to get me some beer, so I left there. But anyway, I kept going back and when I heard the pastor at this place, Pastor Marty Dunkerley, when I heard him preach, man, I thought it was the first time in my life that I believed that the man preaching this to me actually believed what he was preaching. And it made a huge difference in me, man. And so I kept going, and these people just, they pulled me right in like family, man. And my buddies were right. They were just people exactly like me that had been messing up all their lives, and finally, you know, they called out to God, and God answered. And the same thing that was going on with me. And so I stayed there for about 6 months, only, you know, I was still a drunk. Until one day, you know, the Lord started really dealing with me, and he was like, hey, I want to do some things with you, and I can't do that with you drunk. You know, if you want to really live for God, then you're going to have to present your body as a sacrifice. As the Bible says, you're going to have to present your body as a sacrifice. You're going to have to sober up. You're going to have to, you know, you're going to have to sober up. It's kind of like if you handed an artist, you know, if you went to an artist and said, hey, man, will you draw me something really beautiful? And you handed him a dull pencil. You know what I mean? You know, it's not really even fair. And how are they going to be able to work with that? You know, like giving them a paintbrush and no paint. You know, it just won't work that way. And so I suffered, and I prayed to God. I said, well, you know, I want to put this booze down. I said, if you'll take away the cravings from me, then I'll suffer through the withdrawals. And that's exactly what happened. I pulled a really good hard drunk, and I told my girlfriend, I said, I don't want to drink no more. I'm quitting. And so the very next morning, that was the hardest I had the shakes so bad, and for like 2 weeks I was just my body. I just felt like I was turning inside out. For 2 or 3 weeks, man, I was like that before I finally got over the shakes and was able to even go outside and sit on the porch. And that's all I could do. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I couldn't go to work. Working was out of the question. So and it's still, and even after that wore off, after like a month, of just this really weird, I don't want nobody around me feeling. I just want to hide, and just being really sick. Then I couldn't sleep because I'd been so used to passing out all my life as opposed to going to sleep. I'd been passing out all my life, and so I spent a couple more months not being able to go to sleep at all. I mean, I went days on end without being able to sleep at all, and it was really horrible. But I made it through it. And I finally got to where I could function, and I went to work. I got me another job, and I went to work. And one day I was at work, and I felt the presence of the Lord. That's when God suddenly was like, "Hey, this is me. This is the guy you were against all your life. This is me right here. I'm letting you know now. I exist. I'm here. I'm very much alive and very much real." And he showed me how everything in my life, everything, all the people, all the situations I was in, he showed me how every bit of that fit together like a puzzle. And if one thing, all the things that I thought were really hard was really a training for so that I could do what I'm doing now. If I hadn't had the hard times that I had, if I hadn't lived the rowdy life that I'd lived, then a lot of people that I'm able to talk with and talk about the Lord with now, they wouldn't be able to relate, like, the people that I was in jail with, a lot of them come to church with me now. And people that knew me as a Nazi skinhead years ago, they can't believe the change now that I'm a follower of Christ now instead of a follower of Adolf Hitler. And they when I'm able to talk to people in like the Aryan Brotherhood now, and they listen to me instead of threatening me. And I've got swastikas tattooed all over my body because I was in the Nazi skinheads for years, from the time I was 13 all the way up until maybe 5-6 years ago. But I'm able to talk to those people now, and some of them are reaching out and learning about Jesus and coming to God. So if I hadn't lived the way that I had lived, then a lot of the people that I can talk to now about the Lord, I wouldn't be able to talk to them. So it all fit together. Every little thing fit together, and the timing was perfect, and everything was just perfect. I mean, it was absolutely perfect the whole time. All the years that I thought things were going so wrong, they really wasn't. They were really falling into place exactly as they needed to go. And he showed me all this, and I was just amazed, and it was so beautiful. And I was just, I want to live for Jesus for the rest of my life, and I want to do whatever I can to serve Jesus. And so that's why I started this YouTube channel. And I really wish that I could find a way to take the live video. I've been going live on Facebook and preaching, and well, I don't know if it's preaching, but it's I read the word, I read the scriptures, and explain, whatever the Lord tells me to explain. I don't know that that's preaching. It's more like witnessing, I guess. Anyway, So that's my purpose of being here. And I'm going to end this video here now because it's just an introductory, and I've already spent a half hour just explaining to you what I'm doing here. And I appreciate y'all, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and all the live videos that I did on Facebook, I'm gonna redo them and put them on here so that I can share with more people, because, you know, like I said, Facebook is all just your friends, you know, so you don't get the critique that I'm sure that I'll be getting here. I see when people try to talk about God on YouTube what happens. Anyway, I certainly appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me, and I'm looking forward to posting my videos on here and sharing messages with you, and I love you guys. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.